Hey, it's your three favorite former U.S. men's national team players in Soccer We Trust YouTube fam. And we have a very special guest joining us today, LAFC and U.S. men's national team midfielder Kellyn Acosta. So hit like and subscribe to show your appreciation for him and for us for having yet another great guest on your favorite podcast. And let's get after it. Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ray Hudson's favorite magisterial podcast in Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Trash Can Cream Cheese Conrad alongside Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies and Hollywood Heath Pearce. And we have a very special guest joining us today, the one, the only, the Iron Man of the U.S. men's national team, having made more appearances for our national team than anyone else since the beginning of 2021. That is Kellyn Acosta. So, Chuck, what are you excited to talk to him about?
Everything. I mean, from the U.S. men's national team, the growth, the progress, LAFC, Gareth Bale. Let's go. Let's get him on.
Okay. Heath, how about you? Anything you really want to get into the weeds with Mr. Kellyn Acosta?
I mean, yeah, we'll get to it. But Jimmy, you also tried to start the show by saying your favorite men's national team, and you quickly corrected yourself to say your three favorites to our listeners. So good job on that. But part two, yeah, I picked that up. I heard Jimmy. But part two of that is I want to know what it was like for Kellyn in 2021 to play 21 games for the national team. 21.
That's more caps than you have
for the national team.
He did it in 1 year.
No, actually, in 2008, and this is something I've got a big fight with U.S. Soccer about before we bring him on, is I was the most capped player in 2008. But they put out that centennial yearbook, like the 100 years thing, yearbook, and they put that Michael Bradley and I were tied. And I felt like that was an attack on me. They didn't want to give me credit for a player so average having the most caps in the national team that year. So they put his name in there as well. So I got to take that up with him. But that was at eight appearances, I believe, that year. 21 is nice. Unreal.
21.
I just want to know him. Yeah. Did it come in a giant check or did it
Yeah, we have a lot of questions about that bonus money. So let's bring him on. It's time for our tale of the tape. It's the pride of Plano, Texas, who stands an intimidating 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighing 150 pounds, who made his way through one of the best academies in the country with FC Dallas before making his first team debut with the club at the age of 18. And he's never looked back since, making another 255 appearances in MLS with Dallas, Colorado, and now in his first season with LAFC. It's 27-year-old midfielder and set-piece magician for the U.S. men's national team, Kellyn
What an intro. God. I need you. Wow.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'll be your hype man anytime, Kellyn.
I appreciate that. I needed that.
Great. So first and foremost, thank you for coming on the show. Second, I guess the big overarching question is how you living, man? I mean, we're finally here to the finish line before the World Cup starts. You're part of the Supporters Shield winning LAFC before the MLS Playoffs kick off. You got to be feeling pretty sweet, man. Things all rosy, no? Yes? Good? Yeah?
Yeah. So far, so good. I'm in a great city. I'm part of a great organization. I'm part of a winning team, Supporter Shield winners. And life in LA, my first year in LA has been pretty swell. I've been enjoying myself. It's been great.
Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, we saw the team last year fall short of the goals of reaching the playoffs, which is unusual for a team that's had the momentum that LAFC have had since their inception. But this year, after a few rough patches, it looked like is this team on the rocks? Are they settling down? Has the luck ran out? And you guys bounced back so well in each of your sort of moments of adversity. What's it been like this year playing under Steve Cherundolo? And what's helping this team continue to get results and be in this type of form and momentum going into the playoffs?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's been great. I think, that's part of every season. You're going to have highs and lows. And I think for us, we dealt with some adversity early on. So we actually learned a lot about ourselves. We were able to grow. And I think everyone has been tremendous. I mean, whether, coming from the bench, starting games, I think we've had a really deep roster. And I think we have a great team to really, make a run in the playoffs and hopefully lift up a trophy. I know everyone always mentions, LAFC in the past years of, falling short in the playoffs, but we have a different feeling for this group for sure. And I think we can't really dwell on the past, but, look ahead to the now and to the future. And like I said, we just take it one game at a time. But I mean, over here, I can say the vibes are going well. Everyone's excited. Everyone's happy. And I think it's just a different feeling, I would say.
How has it changed for you personally? You play with Dallas, Colorado. You were kind of the big name. You were the guy. You play with LAFC, not to take anything away from what you mean to this team, but in terms of names, Gareth Bale, Carlos Vela. The expectations are on these guys, the big prime timers who have played in Europe, to do the job. But
There's
it's
no expectations on Bale. Relax.
But let's say, okay. But
Yeah.
Ilie Sanchez and you have been so important to this group. So can you talk about what your role has been with this group and how different it is for you over the years of you being a professional?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, we have some star players, some big name players, and I think my role, and I guess you can say Ilya's role, is to make everyone around us jobs easier. I mean, I'm not a flashy player, and I don't, make the headlines, but I just want to be, a key cog in the midfield on both sides of the ball. And feed our star players, have them score some goals. I mean, you've seen Carlos score some goals, Chicho, Gareth. I mean, even Giorgio in the back's been tremendous as well. But yeah, I mean, my job is to, fly under the radar, but, be consistent in my role and, help out in every aspect of the game that I can.
Now, Kellyn, I'm glad Gareth Bale got brought up because he plays for Wales. He's arguably their best player. We just happened to play Wales first in the World Cup. So how many times have you told him in the locker room, "Hey, we're gonna dunk on you guys in Game 1 on November 21st"?
Yeah, it's been a little bit quiet. It started when he first came in. We had a little bit of banter, a little bit back and forth. But I told him recently, I'm like, when it gets closer to World Cup time, I'm gonna start kicking you on the field, and not in the sense I want him, injured and sidelined, but going to the World Cup where he got a little bit of cuts and bruises where he's feeling it. So no, it's friendly banter, but no, I mean, yeah, he's a great dude, and I'm excited to obviously play with him. He's a guy that I admired for a long time, but on the international stage, I can't wait to play against him and also kick him on the field and hopefully prevail and win.
That's the spirit, Kellyn. All right, go ahead, Heath.
Hey, so you finished the season with a loss against Nashville, and then you go into a bye week, right? Are you a fan of the bye week going into the playoffs, or are you one that wants to just get straight into it? Because that's a decent little gap before you have your next match.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, it was sour taste in our mouths because we did lose our last game and we felt like we deserved a little bit more. And then we had the celebrations right afterwards, so it was a bit weird. But yeah, for the bye week, I mean, it kind of just depends on the season. If you have a team that's kind of banged up and need some guys to recover, then it's like kind of positive. But I think for us, I think everyone's healthy, everyone's ready, excited. So kind of the bye week isn't really beneficial. We would rather just keep on rolling.
Hey, hold on. What's that noise? What's that noise in the background? Who keeps screaming?
Oh, well, we got like a 15 versus 15 staff game.
Who's screaming? Somebody out the person that keeps screaming.
Yeah,
is he the one screaming right now?
Has to be.
Yeah,
Jordan Harvey.
I feel like it'd be Thornton.
Yeah, someone screaming. Right. It's got to be Thornton.
Yeah, he's competitive. Even in this game, I mean, I've seen him put in some tackles, and he's yelling at guys to get in position. So, yeah, that's John Thornton, everyone.
Now, I'm not trying to butter you up, so don't take this in that way. But I picked LAFC to win MLS Cup.
Here we go.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Real flyer that one is.
Okay.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Way to go, Charlie.
Hey, there's a lot of people who don't have LAFC winning given their roster. Okay. So you're playing Nashville or Galaxy in the playoffs. Winner of that game. Nashville just beat you. Galaxy, it's always a rivalry. But what do you think you need to do to ensure that you guys are holding MLS Cup at the end of this run? Because ultimately, with this group, you should win, right? But it always doesn't work like that. What do you guys have to be conscious of to make sure that you don't have a slip up?
Yeah, thinking that this game is just going to be easy. Playing at home, obviously we had the 32-52. That's our energy and our motivation. But I think, especially during this year, we've faced a lot of adversity in games where we've had a slow first half and even better second halves. But for us to, take our game to the next level and hold up that trophy, we need to have a complete game from start to finish. And we kind of shown that in the Nashville game, despite not winning. I thought we created a lot of opportunities. I thought we controlled the game. So we in that sense want to be more clinical in front of goal. But I mean, otherwise, I thought we were pretty sound. And I think we've had some games where we can kind of look back and kind of grow. and some games where, we struggled a bit. But I think that's important for us to realize, what it takes to win a game and to lift a trophy. So, like I said, I mean, you got to just play a complete game. And for LAFC, for us, I mean, we talk about we want to play, beautiful football, and you want to pass around teams, be dynamic and energetic. But sometimes these games aren't that way, and you got to roll up the sleeves and grind and just figure out a way to win. And that's how champions are made. And I think if you've seen like past winners, teams that go all the way through, they might not be the most prettiest team footballing wise, but they win. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
The last time that I think LAFC played the Galaxy in the playoffs at the Bank, I was there. It was a 6-3 game, I believe. Zlatan scored a couple goals. It was a crazy game, and I want that again. So I'm hopeful the Galaxy can do the business so you guys can face them. Now, just to throw a stat out there, just 7 of the last 26 Supporter Shield winners have gone on to win MLS Cup. Has that been part of the conversation from Steve Cherundolo at all, that you're trying to break that, or have I just jinxed you guys? I hope I didn't. But
no, I mean, that's just a statistical anomaly. I think for us, it's just like the past is the past. And I mean, for us, we make our own future, right? So Steve has not mentioned it. I did not know that either. Everyone always, I mean, to people, I didn't know the exact number. People talk about the Supporter Shield curse, but who cares? Who cares? For us, it's just about going out there, putting our best foot forward, and try to have a complete game, and play our game, and be diligent in our tactics, our defending and our attacking, and let the chips fall where they may.
Let me ask you about you to speak about yourself personally. You talked about the work that you do and Ilya does, and it's a lot of that dirty work, right? It's not the big, beautiful glory stuff that you see within the game. And at times it only feels like you see the strengths that you have or Ilya has when you're off the field. You see the gaps, right? You don't see, because it's not the big goals, assists. Of course, you're amazing at set pieces. But what do you think makes you a good player, both on the national team as well as for this LAFC side?
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, I mean, what I do is not glamorous, but I think from my standpoint, like I mentioned before, is to make everyone's job a lot easier. What is that? Just spatial awareness, is taking players away in terms of and having space for our creative guys to play to their strengths. And defensively is also covering for those guys, because usually those are the guys that they don't want to run as much. I know you being a defender, you know what it is. Charlie.
I ran a good amount.
Yeah, you did.
That's true. They invented corner flags for Charlie, so he knew when to put his head up, stop running. Otherwise exactly. He'd run straight into a bleacher. He's like Forrest Gump. He'd run straight into a wall eventually.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, for me, it's just winning the ball back and finding our creative guys and, letting them play their games and try to bring the best out of them. So, I mean, for me, I think I do a good job of, bringing the best out of everyone around me, and, trying to help them play at their best of their abilities. Because when we all have, good games, then we get positive results. And so that's my main focus, is to, better everyone around me.
Hey, Charlie, real quick, follow up real quick on this. Is this the best team you've ever played on, Kellyn, in terms of like you feel your chances to win an MLS Cup? Is this the best team?
For you talking about LAFC? Yeah, definitely. I mean, from top to, I mean, you look at I mean, our starting 11, then you look at our bench, our depth. I mean, I think we have a complete team to do that. But we can talk about all these different things, but it's all about executing. And so, I mean, overall, I mean, especially just going through this year and some of the games that we played, I mean, I really have a positive feeling, going into the playoffs.
Kellyn's quietly throwing shade on FC Dallas in Colorado.
Yeah,
and I'm here for it. I got
that FC Dallas team you played with Morrow.
Yeah, 2016, we were good too. Yeah, we were real good too. Team. But I don't know, this team is just more dynamic, I think different attributes. And I think we've been pretty consistent throughout the year. I mean,
wonder how Charlie
to show for it.
Wonder how Charlie ever went out on a limb to pick you guys to win the MLS Cup.
I really don't know.
Wild,
right?
Charlie, wild.
Yeah, like the Philadelphia Union wouldn't be a good choice, right? I would say this in terms. I know we touched on Gareth Bale, but he comes into your team. It's announced. What were your expectations versus what he's been able to do for you now? I know he hasn't played as much as people may have think. A player like Gareth Bale would play in his production, but we've seen glimpses of what I mean, that he's the truth basically. So what are the expectations heading into the playoffs? Do you think he's going to be starting every game? Is he we can't expect him to be a super sub every game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to the coach, right, Steve, of how he wants to utilize Gareth. I mean, for what I can see in training, he's a guy that's hungry. He's a guy that's ready to prove. He works extremely hard. He's one of the first guys in. He's in the gym, and so he's doing everything that he can. And so, and we've definitely seen glimpses. So I'm hoping that he was just saving everything for the postseason into the playoffs, right? But yeah, like I said, I mean, he's been tremendous. He's been mentoring the young guys. He's been a vocal leader in the locker room, and I mean, his guy of his caliber. I mean, it's a no-brainer for us to have him on our team. And so I'm hoping that physically he can be ready, because I think everything else is there.
In terms of training, has there been that one moment where you're like, damn, this guy's now unreal. I see Gareth Bale like, damn.
Yeah, I've seen it on numerous occasions where, he picks up the ball like in a pocket, he turns and he like cuts like 4 people and he just puts a top in. And I'm just like, like what? Like that was so different. Like that's like another level. Like you just don't see that every day. But he's done it on numerous occasions. I mean, you kind of saw his goal against Salt Lake, but I'm talking about more in a compact field where he's like cutting and dicing, and then, I mean, everyone knows how strong his left foot is. So, but yeah, we've seen that on numerous occasions in training.
All right, Kellyn, let's kind of bridge this MLS conversation with the U.S. men's national team. You came out with an interview recently, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it. You said that people have a negative outlook on MLS. That's actually what you said. I'm going to keep your quotes a little bit shorter. And you said they automatically think that if you're from MLS, you're not good enough, and that if you're in Europe, you have to be starting for the U.S. men's national team.
Not on this show.
And, well, what's interesting, yeah, that's very true. But I hearken back to my time in the World Cup in 2006, and at the end of that, we didn't do well. We didn't get out of the group. But the 2 highest rated players coming out of that were me and Clint Dempsey, who at that point only had MLS experience. And I stayed in MLS, and Clint went on to obviously great things. But it just showed me in that moment that you're either ready when the whistle blows or you're not. When the World Cup comes around, and okay, what you did in the past is great. It's going to help you, but does it help you in that moment? You got to be ready. And it doesn't matter where you're going to play in the future. So I appreciated that you kind of stood up for MLS players, because I don't know if we see that or not. You guys take a lot of grief for anytime the men's national team doesn't play well, that it's always the easy targets are MLS players, when it's not always that case. And I think it's always a little bit nuanced, and there's a little subtlety to how the team performs. And I just actually didn't really have a question there. I just wanted to show my appreciation.
Yeah,
I just wanted to brag. He just wanted to tell you he played in this 2006 World Cup.
Yeah,
so
he just wanted to throw that. And not only that, I was rated the best with Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, I definitely caught that. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll take that, Kellyn. I'll appreciate it. But I just wanted to prove the point that we only had MLS experience, and we still went out there and performed at a high level against the world's best. So I mean, yes, for
I guess just to add on to that, I mean, for me, it was just more of a bit of frustration, because it's one of those things where I think people should view the game for what it is, not for what you've done in the past. Like you mentioned, a bad game's a bad game, doesn't matter where you play, and a good game's a good game. And so people should take the liberty in that sense. I think it's like, oh, it's a bad game because this is where you play at. Or in some instances where I've received it, where you played a good game, but it's a lesser opponent. But it's like, don't make excuses. Like, it just tell it how it is. And that's kind of all I ask for. I'm just talking about in a general sense. And that was kind of just what I wanted to speak about and for people to understand.
And just, I think for context, because Heath and I played overseas, I think the reason why that's the case is because they feel that the average level of competition on a daily basis in practice, because in MLS, there are guys who don't need to train at their best, and they're going to play regardless on the weekends, right? Fact. In Europe, that's not the case in 95% of the club. So they say they're not getting pushed, so therefore that's pushing them to not be in those environments, so that they have more poor performances than better performances. And I think that is the thinking behind why some people would say that. But obviously,
yeah, I mean, I understand that, but it's the national team, right? I mean, you pick the best players to be on the national team. You play to win. So I think if you take that into account, I mean, I guess you're in that sense. I mean, I understand what you're coming from, but if when we're all coming together, I don't think the level drops off by any means. I feel like everyone belongs there. And I think people should really take that into account. They're not there at trainings. They don't see, what goes behind the scenes and, how people are performing. So that's just basically it. But I agree with you. I get it. It's a different feel and competitiveness. I would say for certain teams, I guess.
yes.
But yeah, I guess I just want everyone to just have a fair shake when you're playing games. That's all.
Facts.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong there, right? I mean, what Charlie was saying, there is some merit around the pressures and all of those things that come in pro rel and all the things that people want to use. But the reality is, Kellyn, is nobody's watching most of those games at any of these clubs that are playing at. I would say the three of us on this show watch more games or as much as anybody, but I'm watching maybe 3 of you guys play, 4 of you guys play, and then the weekend wraps up with MLS games that I'm watching. I'm watching as much as I can, but I can't tell you how Cameron Carter-Vickers played every weekend, week out, right? I can't tell you what Mark McKenzie's up to all the time. Though I look at the highlights and I go, okay, their team won. He must have played well, right? Like he must have played well.
Highlights don't do things justice,
they don't tell the story of the
look
environment. Yeah. And so,
we live in a statistical era.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't tell any of the story or very little of the story. For you personally, is there still an ambition? You're 27 years old, I believe, right now. Is there an 27. ambition to test yourself in a different environment outside of the league, or where do things stand with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of outspoken about it. For me, that's always been a dream of mine. And, my biggest dream was I want to make my debut as a professional footballer. I want to play consistently. I want to be part of the national team. Be consistent on the national team. I want to play in a World Cup and I want to play in Europe. And so for me, nothing changes despite my age or my journey. That's always been a dream of mine. That's something that I hope to achieve one day.
When you look at this system that has been played with the U.S. men's national team, people are always talking, are you going to possess the ball? Is it going to be beautiful? Like you talked about with LAFC. In certain games, like you said, you just got to roll your sleeves up. And I look back to your Nations League performance. Your Nations League final performance was damn near perfect. The way you covered the ground, how you had discipline, you broke up plays, and you all just grinded. You capitalize on set pieces. And if you got to win that way, then you got to win that way. But you guys grinded, You played it different. And you look at the Japan friendly, and I know it's a friendly. I know it's just before the World Cup. Maybe some guys in the back of their mind, like, I can't get injured. I'm not putting myself in that position. But the style did not suit the performance, right? Or a positive performance, because trying to build all that back. And at this time, it's like, you know what? Shit ain't working. Boot it into the channels and move forward, right?
Yeah.
How have you seen this team grow up until this point, and what needs to change to make sure that come that first game against Wales and then England and Iran, you guys are making those changes, even if you were tactically told a certain thing, but on the pitch, you're like, hey, we got to switch it up.
Yeah, I think for our standpoint, I think what we've shown in the past couple of years is our willingness to adapt. And like you mentioned, the Nations League final, it was one of those games where it wasn't the prettiest games, but we rolled up our sleeves and we found a way to win. I think the World Cup's going to be similar. These games aren't going to be, glamorous and pretty. It's going to be a fight. They're going to be up for it. And it's going to be, who can, stay up on their feet the longest and throw the most punches. Right. And for us, we got to be able to adapt to what the game brings you. I mean, sometimes you can play out of the back, and sometimes it's like we got to hook it into the channels and win second balls and put the other team under pressure. And I think that showed in the Japan game where, we invited a lot of pressure, and we had careless giveaways. And in a World Cup, it's the little details. I mean, teams aren't going to be as forgiving, right? They're going to capitalize on these chances, and then we're going to be scratching our heads wondering, what we should have done. But I think we just be more mindful of what the game brings us and be able to adapt. And And I think we've shown that in games, but it's like we really gotta put that into play.
100%.
And yeah, and just kind of just do it. I mean, yeah, like I said, everyone wants to play beautiful football, 1-2 touches, flicks and tricks, and want to score pretty goals
The
after
dummies.
40 passes.
Yeah.
The dummy, yeah, you know how it is. Yeah, you're at double scissor, nutmeg. I mean, you want all of that, right? But that's not how games go most of the time. I think it's you got to grind for a bit of it. When the game opens up, then you're able to do some of these things. But before that, it's tactical. It's the little details. It's kind of everything in between.
And I see S27 comments on YouTube saying you don't need to boot it, Charlie. I'm not saying you got to boot it like playing like Jimmy Conrad played in the 60s when it was just long balls.
In those square shoes.
Yeah. I'm not talking about when Jim was playing. I'm talking about long diagonals, skipping the midfield, playing straight to a winger or a center forward who can hold up the ball and get him more involved. Those are the things I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, Kellyn, I want to jump in here and say that you were in with the national team for a little while, and then you didn't get called in for 2 years, close to 2 years. And then in 2021, you had 21 caps for the national team, which is awesome, and then have another 8 in 2022. What is it going to mean for you at 27 years old and your family and everybody, your support system, on November 9th when you hopefully hear your name get named to the roster? And I wouldn't say that if we didn't all assume that you were going to be there. What is that going to mean, though, for you, given all the hard work and sacrifice that you've put into it?
Yeah, I think it even dates back to before even me and being in the national team. It's been a childhood dream of mine. And I think everyone around me knows how hard I've worked to even get to this point. And it's going to be that much sweeter, accomplishing that. And yeah, there's been a lot of hours behind the scenes just to get my, game back on track to even be in consideration for the national team. And then obviously having the opportunity and to getting called back in and, and to play games and be a part of it has definitely been huge. But yeah, I mean, it's indescribable. I mean, it is super surreal. I mean, it would be a dream come true. And like I said, that'd be something that I hope to accomplish one day. One day soon.
Oh yeah, there you go. How much is form playing a role in your sort of mindset right now, right? Because there's no matter what you could tell me right now, I'm not thinking about the World Cup. Not, it's not on my mind. Playoff one game at a time.
What's the World Cup? I've never heard of
this nonsense. But like, how much is your form right now and a deep run for LAFC? How much do you think that is connected to what Greg Berhalter is watching and just, showing that you can be a trusted guy, one, at this time of the year in terms of where your legs are at energy wise, but two, obviously you've played some versatility within the team this year. I mean, how much is that interwoven into your mindset right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's the World Cup, right? And it's almost here. So you have that in the back of your head. But for me, I'm just trying to be as present as possible. I mean, we're here in the postseason, 3 games left to hold up a trophy. So, I mean, the right answer is like, I'm totally focused on performing well and working hard and, form means everything, right? Especially what I want to accomplish. Like I told you, like I want to play in the World Cup. I don't want to just be on the roster. So I think it's important for me to use these next, hopefully 3 games. For one is to continue building and growing, being in good form as I approach the World Cup and obviously holding up a trophy at the end of it. And then just after holding up a trophy, being awarded with playing in a World Cup. So I think everything kind of goes hand in hand and all that's interwoven, like you mentioned. But the most important thing is about just being present right now.
Well, you're present. Talk about that swag that you got. You said you moved from Dallas, Colorado, LA. You're feeling the city. What are you rocking? Do you already have your outfits picked out for the playoffs?
Not quite. Yeah, I mean, LA, I mean, this kind of fits my vibe, fits what I'm into, my aesthetic. I'm into fashion. I mean, they got every store, no demand here, and I've been enjoying it. I mean, I've met a lot of different people, designers, and I mean, shook a lot of hands. But yeah, I mean, postseason, I'm ready. I'm coming for it.
Boutique guy or a big shopping center, Beverly Hills, Like, what's
I do. I mean, I don't discriminate. I do it all. Boutiques to shopping malls.
Hey, Charlie, I'll tell you this. We worked with him on Paramount Plus, a Verizon thing, and his manager, he's got a manager and an agent, just so you guys know how important he is, said we got to make sure that he connects with his stylist to make sure he has, like, this is the level that we're talking about.
Okay.
Wait.
We had to go.
I got
to his
team.
manager to get.
Are you the only player in
sure,
MLS with a stylist? Or
no, I'm not the only one. There's other people too.
Okay.
I just want to say that Heath was flexing there. Yeah, when I worked for Paramount Plus and Verizon.
That was a free
this is literally a Paramount Plus.
I'm just saying.
Show
CBS hey, if you're gonna give me a hard time for my flexes, I got to come back at you. I just want to make sure I heard that. Okay, Kellyn, before we let you go, we have a tradition here. For our guests, what is the best jersey swap you've had in your career? And then what's your biggest regret? Who's somebody that you asked for, like Heath, and didn't get one in return? Because Heath's story is the best of all time. So start with your best and then give us your big regret of who you didn't get.
The best I have was probably, I gotta think, maybe Benzema.
Don't say maybe.
Come on, maybe Benzema.
He said
the dude's winning the Ballon d'Or on Monday. Come on, that's like,
yeah, this was some years ago. Yeah, Benzema.
That's a big.
And then the jersey I didn't get was Neymar. He hit me with meet me in the locker room. We'll trade there. And you know me. I'm like, all right, I'm waiting. I was young and naive, to say the least. Young and naive.
You're still waiting outside the locker room.
Hey, Benzema was the only player that I ran into him on Wall Street, and he's the only person I just ran up to him. I was like, "Hey, man, picture," and he looked at me like, "Dude, are you gonna like shank me or something? What's up with this energy you got right now?" And it's like me wearing actually a Barcelona T-shirt on accident. It was like a random brand sent me this T-shirt, and it doesn't say Barcelona, but it was the colors and everything, and had some sort of name and logo. It's like me doing a selfie with it. It's super blurry, and I was like, and then after that, I was like, why did I want a picture like with Benzema? Well, like, what prompted me? And I was like, yo, because he's Benzema, and I haven't regretted it since.
Yeah, Big Benz.
Big
Benz.
Yeah.
Well, Kellyn, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in the playoffs, and of course, to reach your dreams with the U.S. men's national team. We hope you get named to the roster, of course, and then get to play as well. That will be a very special experience. Let's get after it. Get after Gareth Bale. Get after him. Kellyn Acosta, everybody. Give him some love. Let's get after it. Woo!
Best of luck.
All right, we're going to take our first and only break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the Americans that were playing midweek in Europe. Don't go anywhere.
The UEFA Champions League on Paramount Plus. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. That's brilliant! With more magic and more drama. While a former Bavarian nails the back of the net in Barcelona, an American trades his stars with zebra stripes, and a Norwegian creates sky blue spectacles. So stream every sweat-soaked second of regulation time, stoppage time, and extra time. Beyond magnificent! This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Heath Pearce, and we just had a fantastic interview with LAFC's Kellyn Acosta, who also represents the U.S. and I think is a lock to go to the World Cup when the roster is announced on November 9th. Chuck, I'm coming back to you. Any big takeaways from that interview with Kellyn? I thought that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. He's confident about LAFC and he's confident about the U.S. men's national team. I think it seems like he's on our page, same page, that this team needs that grit, that this team needs to roll up their sleeves and adapt. And he thinks they're capable of doing it, just like they did in the Nations League final. No one gave them a shot in that final. When we go back to that time, Mexico were the heavy favorites. Heavy. The U.S., everyone was kind of like, oh, we'll see. We're going to see how
well, it's because we squeaked by Honduras in the semifinals. Yeah. It's not like we went in there guns blazing.
Honduras could have won that game for sure.
They could have won that game. You're right. And then when we went down 1-0, I thought, all right, this is going to be a long one. But we showed that resiliency. And I think we got to get back to that a little bit. What's interesting about that Nations League final in particular is that all 3 goals were scored on set pieces. And I don't think we've scored a set piece goal in quite some time. And now I regret not asking him, because he takes a lot of our set pieces, why we haven't done as well. Dude, why aren't we scoring more on set pieces?
Well, Jimmy,
I should just ask him that directly.
I mean, my whole thing is always, and when I do the LAFC broadcast, my whole thing has always been, you need players like that, because even in your worst of days, you need to be able to find ways to win games or get points, right? And his set pieces, and I always equate them to, and I say this a lot, One of the guys that drove me crazy when I had to defend him in training, or was amazing when you played with him, was Bobby Convey. When he used to hit a set piece, hit it so hard with so much pace and spin that you just needed a touch. And that's how Kellyn hits his balls, right? When I look at Carlos Vela, he puts a lot of float on his in-swingers that are deep. They're never really like these balls where anybody's got a chance to score, right? That's a big center back in on the end of a floated ball, whereas Kellyn's are going into spots that it could be an own goal. He whips in with so much pace that you just got to redirect it. You don't have to do anything but get solid contact on it. And I think that specialty is so valuable in the game. And I don't know the stats, but I know the stats of like set pieces just across the globe are like an insane number of the amount of goals that are scored in football matches over the last X amount of years.
Big football matches, right? Yeah. I mean, in the World Cup games, a lot of games are decided by set pieces. So I wonder how that's going to factor into Greg Berhalter's thinking as we move into the World Cup. But I definitely think Kellyn Acosta is on the team. That goes without saying. I was excited about that interview. He was candid. He's open. And sometimes you don't get that, especially as things get closer and closer and closer and the pressure gets ramped up. And obviously we wish him the best of luck again with LAFC in the playoffs because they're Chuck's favorite, right? Way to go, Chuck. Way to go with the heavy favorite. There's the Porter Shield winner. All right, let's talk about some Champions League stuff that happened. We'll get into some Europa League news as well. That Europa League's going on right now. Let's start with Chelsea. They went to Milan. They took advantage of a red card and won 2-0. But Mr. Christian Pulisic, out of the 5 subs, did not come off the bench. Are we worried about that, Heath? I'll come to you first. Are we worried about Christian? Because he just scored against Wolves on the weekends. Prior to that, he had an assist and then didn't play against Milan on match day 3. Scores on the weekend. You think, all right, that warrants at least some consideration to be maybe a super sub in this one. Doesn't get off the bench. Now, maybe because Milan were up 2-0, there was no reason to bring him on. You just want to kill the game off at that point, take the 3 points and go home. But it still gives me a little bit of concern that maybe Graham Potter's rotating the squad where he's not going to play in Europe at all. He's only going to play on the weekend, which is okay, I guess, if that's what happens, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but I say this because I went through nothing similar, but in my own world, a point where I kept on going and performing and knowing, eventually got to the point where I've got no chance. Right? It wasn't just the woe is me and maybe I'm good, maybe I'm not. It wasn't like they're against me. You just eventually get to a peace of mind where you're like, my future is elsewhere. It doesn't matter what I do. And that can actually lead you to playing free, right? As opposed to the ebb and flow of going through like, am I being watched? Does it matter? Oh, I got to do more. And then you end up playing, even more average, that type of thing. I think that the outcome that we're seeing now will be an indicator for him. New coach. It's not gonna happen. He can play free. So when he gets his minutes, I think we're gonna see a confident Christian Pulisic. I do think, but you saw that they rotated all those players in the game that he started last week, and that we're gonna play in the Champions League to get that result.
Right.
He's probably gonna be in that rotation of the next round of guys is like the second squad, so to speak. But it seems like he's playing free, and I think whether that's because he doesn't think he has a chance or because he thinks he has a chance, whatever it is. I like the mentality that he's in right now, and no longer kind of stuck in this never-ending purgatory.
What kind of troubles me a bit, Charlie, is that Mason Mount is actually playing pretty well under Graham Potter, which means it's going to be less minutes for Christian Pulisic in theory, and obviously making him very sharp for the English national team when they get going in the World Cup. Your thoughts on Christian Pulisic, and then tell me a little bit about Serginho Dest. He came on in the 37th minute for Brahim Diaz because they just needed another defensive body in there. He didn't look great. He looked a little timid again. I'm worried about Serginho Dest, honestly, in terms of getting those regular minutes and not having a lot of confidence going into the World Cup.
I would say that Christian is resilient and he knows what's going to be needed of him from this U.S. men's national team group in the World Cup. It's not ideal. It's not ideal that he's not playing consistent minutes and it's up and down, but he's hungry. He's looking to make a move from Chelsea. Let's be honest. You're a young player. You want to be playing all the time. That's not going to be the case at Chelsea. What is the best way to promote yourself and put yourself in a good position in the shop window? A positive World Cup in terms of getting on the field and producing. So I'm not worried about Christian. If he was like injured and he still looks good. When he gets his moments, he's still able to make an impact in some way. I think he's going to do that with the national team. So I'm not worried about Christian. And in terms of Serginho Dest, it's always going to be the same. I'm cautious of his defensive abilities. I'm not worried about him getting into the attacking half and whipping in balls or playing 1-2s and getting shots. That's his strength. That's why everyone was so excited about him coming into the national team. But your main responsibility as a right back is to defend. That has to be your best attribute in my mind. At least being able to.
But that's not one of his strengths, Chuck.
Right,
so that's
right.
That's
so
a lot of concern.
That's what I'm worried about heading into the first game of the World Cup.
I will say though that Jimmy, and maybe you feel differently, that what we've seen from the Marcelos, the Dani Alves of the world, the modernization of that fullback position, they're not great lockdown one-on-one defenders, but they're busy, they're active, they make it hard for you, right? They're not gonna. You can beat them. They get beat on the dribble all the time, but Serginho Dest,
I wouldn't say all the time.
I mean, they get because they have the ball all the time. But like in one-on-one scenarios, like Dani Alves wasn't a great lockdown defender. He was a high-energy guy, and he could get up in your face. But it wasn't like he was an out-and-out defender.
He was a pretty
good
defender. He was a pretty good defender.
And yeah, I guess
let's not make it seem like
Marcelo for me. Yeah, Marcelo took a lot of risks. I thought more in the 1v1 stuff where he would dive in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand what you're saying, Heath. Keep going.
No, and the point
let Charlie bring you down.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to make is that if you go back to Dani Alves before he got to Barcelona, right, when he was at Sevilla, right? He didn't have any of those things. He was playing as high as the strikers all the time, and that's what everybody loved about him. But that next step became the thing of like, I'm going to be at Barcelona. We're going to have the ball all the time. How do I become impactful in this environment? Whether that's in transition, how do I press? How do I defend? What are the few times that I've got to use my tools to make plays, but also develop some of those things? And I think Serginho Dest is still on that early end of, you got to figure out the defending thing first, right? Because you've been praised for everything you can do. He's probably 1 or 2 in our national team in terms of his ability to provide an accurate final pass, right? The cross, he can pick out his target. We don't have a lot of guys that could just pick out the player and hit him every time. He can, but those other pieces that will take him from being what potential and what I think could be a world-class package is on that defensive side, like Charlie said.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if any of the teams we play against in the World Cup take that risk and try to put somebody out in that space. And what Serginho Dest decides to do. Do I go forward and maybe allow that player to – he's going to go forward. It's his instincts and his DNA, and that's why we love him. But finding that balance between when to stay and when to go is going to be super vital on both sides. Anthony Robinson, I think, has similar instincts about going forward as well. Let's talk about Weston McKennie, because Juventus went to Maccabi Haifa and lost 2-0. It's a big surprise in a lot of different ways. I guess the result is a surprise, but just the way that Juve play, they're still looking for that response. Like when are they going to find that consistency? And they just haven't. Weston McKennie didn't play well, got subbed out at halftime. So Chuck, I'm coming to you. This is another player I'm concerned about because he didn't look good in the 2 games against Japan and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, we saw glimpses of what he's capable of, but overall didn't play good. And then now with Juventus, it's again, we see glimpses of what he's capable of, but these overall performances haven't been great. And I'm worried. Are you worried?
I think just Juve suck. No, they're playing really poor.
Right. Thanks for listening to Soccer We Trust, everybody.
They aren't playing well, and I mean, it's no secret. Allegri's lost the locker room. It's a lot. No one's playing for him. No one's playing for the club. It just feels like he's in a really difficult situation because the group isn't like solid. They aren't playing together as a team. So it's very easy for him to he's making subs all over the place. I mean, Weston McKennie has been pretty much a constant under Allegri, but he's not afraid to just start throwing, people off the bench and taking guys off and making drastic changes. And he's just trying to figure out, is there one combination that's going to work for me? And I'm just going to keep tinkering and it's just making the team
makes it worse. Yeah, in some ways. So Heath, Weston, in some of the publications I've seen, was the lowest rated player in this game against Maccabi. That's not a good look. I do want to give a shout out to Josh Cohen, the American who plays goalkeeper for Maccabi. Got a clean sheet against Juve. That's something he can always have in his back pocket, his roll the clip, as it were. And that's exciting. But your thoughts on Weston and what do you think it means, if anything, for the U.S. men's national team? Because you put on the red, white, and blue, and maybe your approach is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but with Weston right now, he's just a guy that I think has enough experience that we've seen the level that he can play at, and he's not in great form now. I do think that form will change come World Cup time.
Is he good enough though to hit the switch? Like, there's only a handful.
I don't know if he's good enough to hit the switch,
and all of a sudden hit.
I don't think he's resting or complacent right now. I think he's in a tough situation at that club. I think everybody at that club is in a tough situation, including Vlahovic, who is like the heralded one. You know, he is also in a tough situation. Everybody in that team is in a tough situation. The supporters are writing letters to the club about their like lack of happiness with the team. So although somebody's rated him at the bottom end of that, I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the case. That is a really tough situation that they're in right now. So he's one that I think will bounce back come World Cup. We'll see the best version of Weston McKennie come the World Cup. I truly believe that. But Matt Turner's one from today that's put together a really good performance. Didn't have to do a lot in goal, but his feet, people were really impressed with his willingness to play out of the back, connect passes, things like that. You know, maybe it's, even though it's a small detail, I think it's an important one for him as a player and the confidence we need in our goalkeeper going towards the World Cup as well.
Yeah, I think he was also playing a little bit higher, maybe off of his line to be somewhat of a sweeper keeper, which I think is some tactical stuff from Mikel Arteta. And he just seems to be fitting in a little bit more. It felt like he was nervous maybe in those early games, and now it seems to feel like he's found that flow and has made some great saves. Charlie, do you still talk with Matt, and how is he feeling about the experience if you do?
I do, and it was also great to see Arteta come out and say he's making improvements and that he's getting better, and he was really good tonight. So I think we all can agree that Matt Turner is a phenomenal shot stopper. That has never been in question, especially Major League Soccer and his big moments that he was able to have with the Revolution. But I think it was always going to be a work in progress with his feet, his distribution. He's the basic distribution. I think when you're talking about long, playing it to certain people, being accurate, he's had that. Mm-hmm. But under pressure, playing with your feet and playing the short game and playing to center backs and your left back or your right back or a midfielder who's checking, and that being the emphasis no matter what, I think that's where he struggled, because it's not about just completing the pass, it's completing the right pass, having the courage to play to a player who's under pressure, which when typically you're like, no, I got to play to the guy who's not under pressure. That can be a lot for a keeper who hasn't been asked to do that for most of his career. So I think just being in that environment, and we talk about MLS, right, with Kellyn Acosta, you're not getting that anywhere else unless you're at Arsenal or in Europe at a club that is the foundation is playing with the ball and getting pushed. When he was with the Revolution, even if he was the number one keeper and was making out, he's not developing in that way. That's not happening. Mm-hmm. But here, under pressure all the time in training sessions, you can see it is forcing him to improve, and he's getting more confident and more comfortable. And then that shows with his performances in Europa League.
Yeah, I'm just glad he's getting games and obviously making the most of them. And to your point, continues to improve. It's one thing where Zach Steffen didn't seem to always get those cup games and didn't get maybe the looks that we wanted him to when he was at City. And obviously he's getting them now at Borough. All right, staying in the Europa League, because that was a Europa League game for Arsenal. Maybe next year you'll be in the Champions League, Gunners fans. But Union Berlin at home to Malmo. So Jordy Pefok started this one, came off in the 63rd minute, only got one shot on goal, but Berlin got a penalty in the 89th minute, so they're up 1-0. And then we have Richie Ledesma, 22-year-old playing for PSV. I think he's got a bright future. I'm excited about him. He just seems to get hurt. He's coming off an injury now. Maybe this World Cup obviously came too soon, but I could see him being a force to be reckoned with for the 2026 team. But he got the last 45 minutes in PSV's 5-0 win over Zurich. So that's encouraging, and I'm excited to see how he continues to get minutes for a very big club in Holland. Now, going back to the Champions League, we had Liverpool absolutely decimate Rangers 7-1. The good part about that 7-1 loss from an American perspective is that James Sands and Malik Tillman did not play. So they can't take we can't blame those guys for that. We knew that Liverpool was going to show up and be themselves at some point, and they decided to do it in this game.
That's one way to put it.
I mean, they were down one. They were down 1-0.
That's true. Yeah, Scotty Arfield scored first, so then they had 7 unanswered goals. You're right. Rangers scored first. But no James Sands, no Malik Tillman. What's interesting about those two guys is that they were being trusted by Gio Van Bronckhorst, the manager of Rangers, to begin this season, played in some big games, and are not in the starting lineup, not being trusted right now. And obviously that doesn't bode well for either one of them to make the World Cup squad. Then staying in Scotland, we had Cameron Carter-Vickers become the first ever American to captain a team in the Champions League as he captained Celtic to, unfortunately, a 2-0 loss at home to RB Leipzig. And I thought he was solid. RB Leipzig's really good. The front four guys. He maybe could have done a little bit better on the second one when Niels Forsberg got in. But when you're under pressure like that, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Big center back. I'm just happy he became captain. That's very cool. Now, the one I do want to talk about, though, Borussia Dortmund 1-1 with Sevilla. Gio Reyna got to play the last 19 minutes. And he had one sequence where he picked up the ball and ran at players and created a good opportunity, just slaloming through and got a cross off. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to a goal, but it just showed his talent. Within 10 seconds, you're like, this guy's the goods. He's got it. What's interesting, though, is we've seen Christian Pulisic do this recently, and to great effect, getting assists, getting a goal in the last 2 Premier League games. We saw Brendan Aronson also do it for Leeds against Crystal Palace, where he's slaloming through guys and hits one off the post, and then they eventually score there. We got a lot of guys that are good at that. Again, this is going to get me back to a broken record time of how do we get these guys on the field at the same time, or at least get in the ball in those spots so they can do this type of thing. I think if you're scouting the U.S. team, you're like, we're just taking away that. As long as we take away their wide play, I think they struggle potentially going through the middle, unless Yunus Musa can be the hero that we're looking for. How about you, Heath? What do you say to any of these players?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my thing about Gio Reyna is I still think he has more upside than any player than we've had in the history of our national team in terms of what you see, what he can do at his age with the ball, the comfort, the creativity, just his ability to do it at the pace that he does it as at his age is bordering on yeah, it's bordering on world-class potential that he has. The thing about it that I like when he's on the field and when he's in and around the box and everything, his willingness to have combination plays, willingness to 1-2 wall pass, get in and out of spaces, probe teams that are comfortable in deep blocks. And that's why I want him on the field. It's just that, it's really hard to eliminate the idea of him having more injuries or him being anywhere close to himself for long periods of time. And that's hard for me to get past right now as I'm so cautious to put him in a lineup somewhere because I'm just like, I haven't had a chance to do that. And it's kind of dreamy at this point to think that I'm going to get anything more than, some stoppage time minutes out of him on the national team in a World Cup. But it's a good problem to have if he is fit and in form, because you certainly want to find a place for him somewhere on the field. And with the Pulisic situation, what it is, perhaps you do have an ability to now, maybe you don't lose Pulisic, but you can push the 3 or 4 of them to somebody form to rise to a point that they're the out and out starter in 2 positions in the World Cup.
You know what's a little frustrating, Charlie, is that we look at this evidence of the players that are doing well. They're picking the ball up wide. We have Christian picking it up on the sideline, Brendan picking it up on the sideline, Gio pretty close or on the outside channel and running through people. But it seems like our national team, we want to get that width from Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest. And I wonder if that hurts us because we're asking our guys that are good getting the ball wide and coming in to be a little bit more pinched centrally, and then they don't really get into the flow that they are getting into when they play for their club teams.
One word comes to mind.
Okay.
Predictable. You have to have a balance. Sometimes Anthony Robinson just staying connected with the center backs and being playing more narrow. Have your outside winger, whoever that is, stay by the touchline. We talk about Christian Pulisic when he picks up the ball and he comes on the inside on the 1v1 dribble. That's great. Keep your left back. He doesn't always have to overlap. At times, that's when Anthony Robinson can be very useful. Timing it, maybe instead of making 10 runs behind Christian Pulisic and holding the end line, maybe it's 3. And those 3 are that much more effective because he's drawn that right back in and keeps coming in. And all of a sudden, the timing's on and the center back's out of position, the right back's out of position, and Anthony Robinson doesn't have to worry about clearing that first defender on the 18-yard box. Now he can look and pick his targets. There's more room. There's more space. More space for the 9, more space for that weak side winger. I think it's just being a little bit more flexible in the approach of who's playing, who's providing the width. Sometimes it's just the winger. Sometimes it's the left back. Sometimes it's a combination and overlapping and interchanging. I think that's what needs to get better for this team to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I hopefully can get that solved and figured out over the next 6 weeks. It's no big deal. We'll have it all figured out. We have plenty of time
to
work on that type. But we looked great against Japan and Saudi Arabia, so I'm buoyed with hope. All right, final thoughts. Charlie, I'll come back to you. Any final thoughts with this one? And I want to give a shout out once again to Kellyn Acosta, our special guest, who was on the top of the show. If you missed it, go back and listen.
I'm excited for MLS playoffs because I feel like we'll start to see some players develop. Then this national team camp will start, I think, soon after. I believe it's in a week or so, or 2 weeks. And then they'll have a 2-week camp in preparation before.
This is MLS players only, so everybody
MLS
knows.
players only before they
got knocked out in the playoffs or didn't qualify.
Depart for Qatar. So, yeah, I'm excited. And obviously, there's still a lot of matches to be played before we get closer to that decision.
And Heath, final thoughts?
Not really. Again, just wanting these playoffs to kick off and continue to assess our players both in MLS at the national team level as well as in Europe. We are low on time. We talked about it when we were 60 days out that we got 60 days. You come back and, Anthony Robinson will be fine. We're now down to like a little bit less than a month, 28 days or something like that until the announcement. So a lot riding on these next few weeks for all these players. And I just hope that we at least have as complete of a pool as possible to choose from, barring any injuries, to make the best roster selections possible.
Yeah, from your lips to the soccer god's ears. My final thoughts is that we got another show for you tomorrow. We're coming back to you live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Just more in soccer we trust in your life. Who doesn't want that? I don't know. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, Hollywood Heath Pearce, I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening and watching you in Soccer We Trust. And we will see you tomorrow. Later.